We are back here on 110 Daily. I'm Josh. He's Chris. Here with you on a Tuesday. Thanks for making us part of your day. We've got some very, very intriguing college basketball matchups tonight with the start of some of these interconference competitions, most notably the Big Ten ACC Challenge. It's weird, and Josh and I were talking about this on our podcast. You went from your beginning of the season events, specifically the Champions Classic, to Maui and the Jimmy V Classic, to the Big Ten ACC Challenge in the span of 2 weeks as opposed to a month and a half or whatever. And so it's just really good matchup after really good matchup these days.
Right. They cut out the things that were cut out when the season was pushed around. Stuff was all that middle stuff.
Right.
So yeah, you just go from like beginning of the season events to Thanksgiving of like time events to all of a sudden here we are, and it's just great because it takes out. I mean, for teams, obviously, losing games is losing those less high profile games in between. Those are good development opportunities, but they're not necessarily for those of us who are trying to keep track of it all. It's not necessarily great TV, those in between games, unless an upset happens, unless something crazy happens. Yeah, there are takeaways. But for the most part, yeah, like you said, we're jumping from big game to big game to big game. I told you last night I went to look at started to do my research for these games we're about to talk about. I pulled up the scoreboard. I pulled up top 25, and oh man, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, if I'm counting right, games tonight involving top 25 teams. We're going to discuss get into 3 of them that are top 25 matchups for both teams. But there's a lot of basketball to watch that's going to be exciting this evening.
And that's the reason I'm so excited about this Creighton Kansas game, and we can start there. Is Creighton is one of the few teams we haven't really seen get tested yet, because I, like you, am not watching Creighton play University of Nebraska Omaha.
Yeah.
There are other. Yeah, surprise. But now all of a sudden they go from playing those traditional non-conference bye games and the lesser opponents to Kansas. What are you looking for here? What stands out? What are you curious about?
Yeah, so with Creighton, I mean, you just hit on it. This is their first real test. This is one of the deepest teams in the country. I really believe that. And they've been good defensively. Like, the numbers for them are insane right now. They're shooting 66% inside the arc. They don't turn the ball over. I mean, like, everything looks great. You look at their numbers, it's like, wow, this is an unbelievable team. But yeah, they haven't been tested. So I want to see what they're like when they're tested. That's simply sort of step number 1 for me. And then for Kansas, I have some concerns with Kansas. They lost their season opener to Gonzaga. That's nothing to be ashamed of course. They beat St. Joseph's. They beat Kentucky. That was good. They beat Washburn. And then the game against North Dakota State that they played in, they won, but it was pretty close. It was not a great performance for them. They shot under 40% from the field. There are some growing pains for this team. I'm interested to see for Kansas what kind of progression they can make, because that win over, they cannot show up the way they did against North Dakota State and even be in the ball game with Creighton if they show up anything like what they did against North Dakota State. They're going to have to progress. Now, they have the pieces to do so. There's no doubt about that. But I'm really interested to see if Kansas can take that step forward, can make that adjustment, can put it together. That's the thing that I'm looking for Kansas. How about you?
Sort of similar. Marcus Garrett hasn't been himself since he caught that stomach bug in the Kentucky game, and it was not pretty against North Dakota State. Their JUCO transfer tying Grant Foster really bailed them out and made some big plays down the stretch. This team is not going to reach its potential and win the Big 12 if Marcus Garrett doesn't get back to being the guy who was supposed to be a borderline All-American, a first-team All-Big 12 best defender in the country kind of player, which it's very early. He's battling this illness. I'm not worried about him yet. I'm also very excited from a Creighton defense standpoint, because that's the question with the question with Creighton is really 2 things, and then I have 2 points I'm interested in. But in terms of ultimately how good can they be this season, can they defend the way they did last season without Tyson Alexander? Because that was one of the things that differentiated them and allowed them to be as good as anybody in the Big East was they were better defensively. And can they do something other than shoot the three consistently? Are they going to be one of those teams that if they don't shoot the ball, they're going to lose? Because you're not winning. You're not making a Final Four. You're not winning a national championship if you're that reliant on the three. The way they play is not conducive to postseason success. So can they find a couple other sources of offense? Can they be a little bit better defensively? Big picture, that's what I'm curious about for Creighton. Specifically in this game, Mitch Ballack needs to get going. He's only scoring 8.7 points a game. He's 5 of 17 from 3. He only has 2 free throw attempts this season. He has to be the second guard behind Marcus Zagorowski. That's why this team was so highly thought of going into this season, why they were so good last year, is even without Tyshawn Alexander, that backcourt is still spectacular, and Mitch Ballack just has not gotten into a rhythm yet. Now, he's a streaky shooter. I'm sure he'll turn things around. He could be a breakout candidate in this game. He could easily go for 25 with the struggles he's had so far. It just takes one game for him to get going. He's that good of a shooter, but so far it's been rough for him. And then also, what can Christian Bishop do on the interior against this Kansas front line that is better defensively than it is offensively? They don't get a lot of points from that interior. Bishop's average, he scored double figures all 3 of Creighton's games. He's averaging 15 points a game. He's 6'7". He's not massive. Creighton's going to play small. But can he continue to be this effective against better competition? That's what I'm looking for in this one from Creighton's standpoint.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you with Bishop. He was the player that I had circled here. He's off to just that incredible start, like you mentioned. He's shooting 81% from the field.
That's pretty good.
That number's going, pretty darn good. That number's going to come down, but like, is it a crashing down to earth against the better competition, or is, we just don't know because we haven't seen it. And so, that's the thing with Creighton in a lot of aspects, and so I'm interested with him in particular. Absolutely.
And then you've got this UNC-Iowa matchup. Also excited about this one for a similar reason. We haven't seen Iowa play anybody yet. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I should mention, Josh, we should do I feel like we should do predictions.
Oh, yes.
At the end.
Yes. Good thinking.
So I'm thinking, I went Creighton for this game, for the Creighton-Kansas game. They had the size advantage. Kansas is still looking for that low post presence that's going to be dominate for them. And I feel like Creighton's diverse offense is going to keep Kansas on their toes. That's my overall takeaway. We've just seen situations for Kansas where I just don't have the confidence that they're going to, they'll figure it out. There's growing pains. They'll get there. But I'm not really confident that it'll be against a Creighton team that I think can keep them on their toes. Oh, how about you?
I'm going to take Kansas.
Oh, I like it. All right.
It's a bigger backcourt, which could give Marcus Zagorowski some problems. I still trust Marcus Garrett defensively if he can get back to being himself. They've got Jalen Wilson's been sensational for him. I just like him better defensively, and I'm skeptical of Creighton's ability to beat top end teams with this group.
That's fair.
Last year I was not as concerned. This year I need to see that before I really think they're on the same level as your Kansas's, your Villanovas in the Big East and teams like that.
All right, now Iowa, UNC. Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, good thinking there. Similar situation here. Iowa's been competing to see whether the other team or Luka Garza scores more points in the first half so far this season. Yeah. Now they play not only a really good North Carolina team, but a North Carolina team that is massive, absolutely huge on the interior. We're going to learn something about what Luka Garza, how good Luka Garza is. If there's a team that's going to slow him down, it's North Carolina. North Carolina needs Garrison Brooks to be the guy he was against Texas in the Maui Championship game. He was great. He got off to a little bit of a slow start, but there's a reason he was right there in the ACC Player of the Year conversation. And I don't have too many other thoughts other than I'm just really excited to see this front line try and stop Luka Garza. But the other thing I'll say, Caleb Love is shooting 27.5% from the field right now. If North Carolina's gonna win the ACC and North Carolina's gonna beat teams like Iowa, and they're gonna score enough points to stay with Iowa, who has defensive concerns but zero offensive concerns, he has to be better. And he's 3, 4, 5 games into his college career. He's got time to figure it out. But it's similar to the Cole Anthony thing last year. You're putting the ball in the hands of a guy who's never played college basketball before, who's shooting a lot, and they're not going in at a particularly high rate. And right now, they're just not going in at a high rate at all. That's the other real concern I have for North Carolina right now. They've got to find a way to be more efficient, and they got to make better decisions and just be better offensively, and that starts with Caleb Love.
Yeah, good point. I like that. I hadn't thought of that angle of it. I think that's a really good point. And, my first thought with this game with Iowa UNC is this could be a really fast-paced game.
Oh, yeah.
Iowa's playing really fast to start the season. UNC has been a very fast-paced team. I will note that the games they've played in so far to begin the year have been relatively slow and low scoring, but we know what this team traditionally is in terms of pace, and Iowa certainly is fast-paced, no doubt about it. I think you make a good point. I'm interested to see how a UNC team that ranks top 15 in defensive efficiency, how they match up against Iowa, against Luka Garza. UNC brings a pretty balanced scoring attack. They've got 4 players averaging at least 11 a game right now. And the player that I had circled as well, Garson Brooks, one of the best returning players in the ACC. He is the glue that holds this team together for me, in my opinion. He's, like you said, or I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but 10-plus points in 3 straight appearances. He did, from what I understand, he landed awkwardly on his ankle in the previous game that they played. So hopefully he is at 100%. That would be a big factor for them if he isn't. One thing I'm concerned about for UNC, they haven't really been sharing the ball well at all. They're averaging 10 assists on 25 field goals per game. Their assist to turnover ratio is 0.6. Like, they're going to need to share the ball better. I mean, it's obvious. I guess it's sort of an obvious statement. They're going to need to share the ball better for them to win and for them to, perform well against the tough competition that they've got coming. So those are some things that I'm looking for. My prediction for this game is, look, UNC could pull off the upset here. It's absolutely possible, but I think everything would have to go right for them. So when it's one of those situations where I think pretty much everything has to click for a team that we just haven't seen them face tough competition yet, really, they haven't seen them be tested in that way. I just can't predict everything to click for them. And I can't pick against Iowa right now. It's going to be a real test for them. But I'm going with Iowa.
I'm taking Iowa as well. Caleb Love is shooting 27.5% from the field. And you talked about the assist-to-turnover ratio. You are not going to be a top 5 team in college basketball without great point guard play.
Right.
Caleb Love may turn into that eventually. He may be that player by the time the NCAA tournament rolls around. Or the back end of ACC play. It's not his fault. He's just getting used to college basketball. But right now, he is not that guy. He's not performing well, and he's not making his teammates better. I'll take the experienced Iowa team, who also is going to have far and away the best player on the floor because he's the best player in college basketball.
Yeah, well said, well said. All right, we got one more to get to, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
This one is also intriguing because it's 2 teams that could really use this win. When we're talking about Illinois and Duke. For Duke, did they learn something from this Michigan State game?
Mm-hmm.
They were just clearly the second best team on the floor. Michigan State got off to a bad start, but then they woke up and it wasn't particularly close. I'm hesitant about this Duke freshman class. I was much more confident in Kentucky's, and that has not really turned into, so far, something that made me look good. I've got real concerns about them now, too. But can they... It's sort of the same conversation we just had with Caleb Love. When you're put in that position, it's not their fault. But for Duke to be really good, Jalen Johnson has to be great. He's got to be the best player on this team. And he looked like a freshman at times against Michigan State. This is an experienced Illinois team. And from Illinois' perspective, they need to make a statement if they are really going to be national title contenders. They already had another team from their conference go in and win this game. They were right there against Baylor, but they just didn't have the experience to find a way to make the place at the end of that game to win. No shame, again. Baylor, a very experienced team that's been there before and done that. But if you want to prove that you belong, and you want to be treated as if you belong in this national title conversation, this is a game you need to win. From a tactical standpoint, I am really curious how many minutes Jordan Goldwire is going to get, and whether Krzyzewski is just going to kind of say, you go guard Ao Dosunmu, because right now he's the best guard on this team, and that is not a good situation for Duke to be in. But even Tom Izzo has continued to, it seems like they play Duke at least every other season, if not every season at this point. He's seen plenty of Jordan Goldwire. He will rave about his defensive abilities. He's been good this season. That's the sort of unheralded guy I'm looking at that could really make a difference in this game. If Duke's going to win, it's probably going to be good. Probably going to be in part because he does a good job on Ao Dosunmu defensively. That's the guy I'm looking at that could provide something a little bit different and some experience and really good defense for Duke.
Yeah, that's along the lines of one of my thoughts for Duke too, and so I'll start with that. I'm curious because Duke played a game between the Michigan State game and the game tonight. They played Bellarmine, and Coach K made the decision to go big in that next game. He started 7-foot freshman Mark Williams alongside Matthew Hurt, which pushed Jalen Johnson into a small forward role. And as a result, again, the competition, you have to note, Duke got more blocked shots. They rebounded at a better rate. So I am really curious to see, will Coach K, will he remain big? Will they go big, or will they go back to a small ball heavy rotation against an Illinois team that's starting essentially 4 guards? So that's the thing that I'm really looking for them. And you hit on this as well. Like, I'm interested to see what approach they take in that area. There's no doubting that this Duke team's really talented, but like you said, right, there's just in a situation where Jalen Johnson has to be good. Otherwise their ceiling is otherwise it's just not going to click on that level that we're used to seeing from Duke. From Illinois' perspective, I really like the lineup flexibility and versatility that they have. That front court can be really dangerous, right? We've shown Dosunmu has shown the ability to play on and off the ball. But yeah, again, this is the opportunity for them, right? When you said it, the team in their own conference has gotten this win. It's time for them to just step up. I mean, this is the opportunity, the best opportunity they're going to have to make that kind of statement. One thing I really like about this Illinois team, they've out-rebounded their opponents by an average of 49 to 23. That's Jeez. Their average rebounding margin. I mean, it is significant. They have an offensive rebounding rate of 47%. They're grabbing nearly half of their missed shots. 47%.
That's remarkable.
I mean, it's just insane. It's really impressive. So this will just lead into our predictions here. I'm predicting Illinois to win this game. Illinois is a team. I don't have faith in Duke being able to keep up with Illinois. They want to play fast. I'm not confident Duke can keep up without getting sloppy, and it could snowball for them. Now, it certainly could go a different direction too. I don't doubt that the potential is there. Of course, we're talking about great teams in all these two great teams in all these matchups. But for Duke to win, they're going to have to limit Dosunmu like Baylor did in the Jimmy V Classic, and I don't have confidence that they can do that. It's possible. I don't have confidence. I'm also concerned that if they miss shots, they're not going to be able to consistently rebound because Illinois is just that good. So yeah, I'm going with Illinois.
I'm not sure we have 2 great teams here. I know we have one. I'm not sure about the other.
Teams that have the ability to be great.
Yes. And that wasn't to correct you, but just that's why I'm taking Illinois.
Yeah.
I believe in this team. I was on their bandwagon last season. I'm a huge Dosunmu fan. Duke's at this point, Duke needs to show me they're on this level because quite frankly, I just don't know that they are. And it's a very different conversation if we're talking about Duke in February because of how young they are. But right here, right now, I'm taking the Fighting Illini.
Yeah.
When we come back, it's time to talk some baseball. Chris, what exactly will we be discussing after the break?
Well, we're going to be discussing the big trade that went down last night, Lance Lynn to the White Sox, and also what else we might be able to expect at the winter meetings this week.
There you have it. That's coming up next. You won't want to miss it. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.